First order is approval of the minutes for April 28th, 2026, and the April 28th, 2026 executive session minutes. We'll take them together unless opposed. Moved by member Daly, second by member Duncan. As you recall from the committees, so we will be doing this by a voice. All those in favor, aye. All those opposed, nay. Vote. So, all those in favor, aye. All those opposed, ayes have it. Motion carries. That will bring us to informational items. Unless there's questions on each individual one, we will receive and file Springdale Long-Term American Rescue Plan and Enterprise Zone. There is one that I do want to talk about on there that is not on here, was talked about at Ways and Means, and that is way I asked member Duncan to do this was it is a Ways and Means issue, and that is an issue that was brought forward by Mayor Winnington from Peoria Heights about a statute allowing for tax abatement program for allowing municipalities to build housing if they would like. But it has to be approved through basically a county board action to allow municipalities to have that tool in their toolbox. Not that anybody is looking to do that, but it would be a tool in their toolbox. So being that it was a complex issue, Chairwoman Duncan agreed that we could have a discussion about it here at executive, and if there's questions over the next month to get those to Administrator Sorrell so that they could discuss or add context to it. But it actually will be a vote that will happen in Ways and Means potentially next month moving forward. So just for everybody to try to digest it, a complicated issue, thought it was better to bring it here. So thanks, Member Duncan. With that, Administrator Sorrell.
Thank you, Chairman Dillon. This is a new exemption in the property tax code that was enacted in 2024. It's titled the Special Homestead Exemption for Certain Municipality-Built Homes. The way the program would work is if you live in Cook County, it's automatically an exemption, but if you're in any county other than Cook, to enact it, it requires a simple majority vote of that county's county board. As the chairman said, we have a request from the Village of Peoria Heights to enact such a resolution or ordinance for Peoria County. And as I shared yesterday at Ways and Means, it would not be just for the geography of the Village of Peoria Heights. If you adopt it, it will be for the entire county. The way the program works is first and foremost, the new dwelling unit needs to be owned by the municipality, and then they obviously could hire a general contractor to build it, but we're taking an undeveloped piece of property, building a new home on it, and then the municipality is selling that to a resident that will then make that new home their primary residence. If all those things occur, then the property would have a reduction in their assessed value of 50% for the first 8 years after it is sold by the municipality. And then in years 9 and 10, the reduction is only 1/3, and then in year 11, it's 100% of the assessed value in terms of so that deduction goes away. It's also non-transferable, so the resident that buys the home from the municipality, it's only good for them. So if they were to move in that first 10 years, then that exemption goes away. Additionally, there are other exemptions that are already pre-existing in the tax code that would be simultaneously exempt, which means that there can't be a duplication or layering of exemptions based on how the statute was written. There's 5 specifically that are called out, and those are homestead exemption for persons with disabilities, homestead exemption for veterans with disabilities and veterans of World War II, senior citizen homestead exemption, the low income senior citizen assessment freeze homestead exemption, and then the fifth and final is the general homestead exemption. So if you are going to partake in the municipality built exemption, then you're not eligible for those other 5 exemptions during the first 10 years. You may or may not qualify for those other 5 exemptions starting in year 11. But the first 10 years, those cannot be layered on top of the municipality built home exemption. We did a quick look at using GIS at the Heights. There's approximately 15 vacant lots that are in some level of capable of being built on. So those would be the lots that we would think the village would want to target. Again, they would have to construct that new dwelling and then sell it to a private owner. So not a substantial number of homes, but obviously that does things like stabilize neighborhoods for municipality like the Heights, which is landlocked, and so they can't grow through annexation. Every resident that they can gain through additional housing is going to help with their population and their ability to collect revenue to deliver services. If you look at other municipalities throughout the county, the largest one obviously is the city of Peoria. Their land bank has over 1,000 parcels, and they also have the Expo Gardens property. But in many cases, and especially the Expo Garden property, since there's a procurement on the street from the city right now, the city's not going to, at least for Expo Gardens, is not going to construct single-family dwellings or duplexes or multifamily dwellings on the Expo Gardens property. They're going to contract with a developer who is then going to develop the property, and yet to be determined if the property will remain in the city's name or will be transferred to the developer. But that type of nuance is not contemplated in the statute, but by reading it, it's clear to me that the municipality has to be the owner. So the likelihood that we'll see a substantial increase in the city is probably not highly likely. It's possible, though. The benefit is that every parcel that would fall under this program is currently not on the tax rolls. So even if for the first 8 years there's only 50% of the assessed valuation that the taxes are being computed on, that's 50% more than what it is today. And then in years 9 and 10, it's 2/3 of what it is today. So there is some inherent value there in getting additional properties on the tax rolls. That spreads the burden for all the taxpayers when there are more parcels on the tax rolls. So there will be a document which is a draft ordinance and a draft agenda briefing that we will send out attached to the weekly update. And as the chairman said, if any of you have any questions, please feel free to contact himself, myself, or even Member Phelan. Member Phelan brought this to us because the request came from the mayor to him and to Chairman Dillon. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
Member Rulin.
This sounds like an opportunity for, in this case, the Heights to be competitive with the rural residential enterprise zone. But the rural enterprise zone allows for a collective of taxing bodies to agree or disagree whether to exempt that house for a period of time. This one seems somewhat aggressive, lasting over 10 years. I would prefer that a small community like the Heights not be in competition with what the county's already doing in rural residential enterprise zones. But I don't begrudge their opportunity to try to get those lots filled in. My question is there any restriction on Peoria Heights to prohibit them from soliciting other taxing bodies to join this effort? Is it just the city's share of property tax that gets abated?
So the statute is structured a little bit differently in that the property taxes are not abated once they're extended and calculated by the clerk's office and the treasurer's office. This happens on the front end where the assessed value of the parcel is reduced by 50% for the first 8 years, and then by a third years 9 and 10. So it would effectively reduce the tax bill for every taxing jurisdiction that parcel pays for. Does that make sense? Okay.
Member Renault.
Thank you. Does this allow for dilapidated buildings to be torn down and rebuilt or flipped by the village?
It doesn't. The statute does not speak to that situation. It merely states that the parcel be owned by the municipality, and that the municipality causes a new dwelling to be constructed, and then sold to a private property owner. So, Mr. Renault, your question is, I would say, is possible. I mean, if the village wanted to be aggressive and start purchasing, or any municipality for that matter, wanted to acquire parcels, demolish dilapidated structures, and then fund the cost of building new structures to then turn around and sell, I would think that would meet the letter of the law. But we should maybe ask the attorney, since I'm not one.
Our office hasn't reviewed this statute, but yeah, we can certainly, if you have any questions, send them to us and we can report out at the next meeting. But this is the first we're hearing of it as well.
So credit to Mayor Whittington for finding this. To the best of our knowledge, Administrator Sorrell asked peers, which group did we ask?
So we asked the County Administrators Association, and which is roughly a third of the counties, and none of them have enacted this ordinance yet.
So it sounds like it's a law, but no municipality has chosen to exercise it at the moment. So we have no knowledge of how it's worked anywhere else. Member Ricker?
Just for clarification, I think the city of Peoria has an tax abatement program for some zones. That can't be stacked either. I just want to make sure that.
Right. So if there is a tax increment finance district, the city has multiple tools. One is a tax increment finance district, which most municipalities have. In that scenario, that city council or that village board has defined a geographic area that they determined to be dilapidated after doing a study, and then the assessed value is frozen for the life of that TIF district, which is 23 or 24 years, and then from a taxing standpoint, and then any development that occurs within that geography over that 20-year period does pay the full assessed value of the developed parcel, but that goes to the city and it goes into their TIF fund and can be used for TIF eligible expenses. That includes infrastructure, that includes incentives to the developer. The city of Peoria uniquely has an urban decay ordinance, which also has defined geographic areas. That program has allowances for property tax abatement for everything as simple as a new roof or replacement windows to a full-blown gut job of an existing structure that presumably is dilapidated because it's inside a defined geographic area of the city that the city has declared as such. In that program, on sliding scale of, I believe it's also 10 years. Uh, Property taxes are abated. So that, again, that a little like the TIF district and a little bit like the enterprise zone, it's done on the back end. And because that's unique to the city of Peoria, we don't know, we haven't researched yet as to whether or not, how this statute would be layered on top of an urban decay district.
I guess the last question is, if I remember right, isn't there a grant program with the health department that they purchased a couple homes or 2 or 3 homes for renovation? But maybe it's not new. I just want to make sure that doesn't stack either.
At the moment, Mr. Ricker, I'm drawing a blank on that program. I know, the planning and zoning department aggressively goes after and applies for grants from multiple state agencies to do dilapidated structure remodeling, and whether it be replacement roofs, window replacement, mechanical replacements, and upgrades. There's also the health department does have a grant from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to remove lead paint from doors, windows, baseboards, and the like in homes where there's been a child diagnosed with elevated lead blood levels. Those types of projects, the township assessor is probably not going to increase the assessed value. So I don't think inherently that there would be too much of a conflict there, because the township assessor is not going to increase the value of your house because you put a new roof on it.
Member Rulon?
Does, to the best of your knowledge, it sounds like this is not completely a mature proposal at this point, but to the best of your knowledge, as in any municipal construction project, would these houses fall under the requirement for prevailing wage?
That would be up to the municipal government to regulate, not us. But presumably, the answer would be yes. But that's the municipality's job to enforce.
Thank you.
Member Duncan?
Yes, Scott. In regards to the 21st Century Road to Housing Act, how will this fall under this particular legislative act?
Member Duncan, I am not specifically familiar with that piece of legislation. I know there were a number of pieces of legislation in the spring session that were championed by the governor, and the most critical ones were not called for a vote. I believe it was in the Senate chamber. It got out of the House, but did not get out of the Senate before the session adjourned very early Sunday morning. And so, if one of the pieces of legislation is that, we haven't evaluated the impact that this existing statute would have on those proposals that were championed by the governor's office.
Other questions? If you do, please get them to Administrator Sorrell so that we can have some further discussion, but that is something that a local municipality would like to see brought forward, so we discuss that. So next, that will bring us up to resolutions. Chillicothe Railroad Viaduct Intergovernmental Agreement with the City of Chillicothe. Is there a motion on the floor? Member Ruland, Member Phelan. Mr. Amy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Chillicothe for the railroad viaduct. So if you're familiar with Illinois 29, north of Chillicothe in the northeast part of the county, it's kind of a pinch point for truck traffic and traffic. It's been around more than a couple of years. The City of Chillicothe asked the Illinois Department of Transportation for some assistance in looking at this location for improvements. Illinois Department of Transportation responded with an offer for $1 million to do the preliminary engineering. We call it the phase one engineering when we work with IDOT to look at that location to see what improvements could be made. The city of Chillicothe doesn't have the staffing or experience to oversee a phase one project, especially of this size. It's kind of a large project. The county highway department does, and so we are submitting for your review an intergovernmental agreement that the county would oversee this funding on behalf of the city of Chillicothe. There would be, of course, city of Chillicothe involvement as we go through the process. We'd have to select a vendor, an engineer, and then go through that process. And the city of Chillicothe would be involved. This is going to be a reimbursement grant, and the county does have some ability to cash flow this. After the vendor is paid, we get reimbursed from IDOT, and that would be a future agenda item for you. But right now, we're asking you to consider the agreement with the city of Chillicothe to oversee this phase one project on behalf of the city. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Amy? Member Phelan.
I can't quite remember, but does the grant, the $1 million from IDOT, does that also cover administrative costs?
So this would be the entire amount, and there's no charge to the city. The administrative part, we do that with other phase ones, so we did not include any administrative costs for the county to administer this.
What I'm asking though is, can we bill our administrative costs to the grant?
That I think that'd be appropriate, but I'd have to check and get back.
I want to ensure that. I mean, we've talked about this a lot at Tri-County and ultimately ended up over here. Member Ruland and I have spent a fair amount of time talking about it, and I spoke with Administrator Sorrell also, but I understand how and why it ended up here at the county. I'm not here to dispute that, but I do think that ultimately we should be tracking how much labor is going into this from our standpoint, because I have a genuine concern that when it comes to phase two or phase three, I really do wonder if the city is going to rise to the occasion to get this project done. And I don't want to see us down the road, if I'm even still here, talking about phase two or phase three, finding out that we've invested a severe amount of money in it that rightfully could have been spent or should have been spent by the city.
Member Ruland.
If I could address that to some extent, the city of Chillicothe has budgeted for the engineering that will integrate their infrastructure to the new roadway as this preliminary engineering project moves along. The other point that should be made, I think, is that the eastern boundary from the center line of Route 29, from the south end of the viaduct, continuing north past the railroad bed, is all in city, or all is in the county jurisdiction. It's only city on the western side of the center line of the road. So there is some natural assumption that the county would be responsible, at least for part of the effort that this takes to manage this project. They are then moving forward with the acceptance of their of this same intergovernmental agreement today at about 4:30. So in 40 minutes, they'll be voting on the same thing that you're voting on to approve this agreement. And it does include all of those points that, again, that they are obligated for the engineering to integrate their infrastructure to ours. So I don't think there's any surprises here. It could easily have been that they were doing it on the county's behalf, but at the minimum, we would have split these costs. the fact that they are reimbursable, there's no need for a split. So in this particular case, we worked very hard, myself and former member Fennel and Eric Miller from Tri-County. This has been a 35-year plus effort on the part of a large number of people trying to get this thing onto the multi-year plan. And this feels like the first time that there is light at the end of that tunnel. So we are blessed with Ryan Spain's support at the state level. He's been working hard to do the same thing with the same goal, to get it on the multi-year plan. And pretty excited to see it get to this point.
Member Ricker?
Just for clarification, is Route 29 a state highway or a county highway? So it's state, and I guess I'm trying to collaborate a little bit with Mr. Rulon, because would the county have a commitment if it's a state highway? It'd be the state's commitment to adjust their highway to meet the needs, and then you got the railroads role in that. So obviously it's not simple, but whose responsibility is it from a highway role?
So as a state route, IDOT doesn't have the staff to oversee the phase one, and that's why they offered the funding to the city, because the city is a major stakeholder, and because of staffing concerns, that's when we offered to oversee it, because we have some expertise in that matter. But it is a state route, and the state will be involved as far as their input, and as will the railroad and the city, of course.
Okay, I just wanted to be trying to clarify whose obligation. I don't have a problem with the county stepping in. That viaduct's been a challenge for way too many years. I don't know what's gone with the railroad, what responsibility they have. I'm sure others have tried to figure out in Tri-County. Yeah, because their path is still good, right? But anyway, and then I guess this is phase one. Remember who brought that up? Mr. Phelan talked about phase 2, 3, or whatever. Future phases could be costly when you get to construction, right? For the counties, if we have the same agreement on the county's participation.
This in front of you just covers the phase one.
So could we hand it, I mean, if there's a phase 2 and 3, it'll be set up that could be handed off to someone different if necessary, other than the county, for managing or leading the design?
The state would have to find funding first, and then once that would happen, that would be something that IDOT would have to kind of lead that charge.
Member Phelan?
Member Ricker, and that's my point, is I don't want this to set a precedent that we're going to be responsible for future phases of it. And I understand why it is that we're doing it, but the single sentence in the second paragraph of the resolution stating that we are doing this because IDOT doesn't have staffing and the city doesn't have experience, they would not be covering the cost of their labor either. So again, back to my previous point, if we are able, we need to be billing all of our labor hours against this grant money. And that's my opinion. I don't think we should be spending money on our labor for this.
Other Member Rulon?
And also with respect to longer term funding for construction, the general consensus of everybody involved is that this is a $25 to $30 million project. It is generally accepted in conversation that it is going to be funded by the federal government with a matching requirement. IDOT seems encouraged to move forward with preliminary plans. The railroad will not get involved until they're presented with preliminary plans. They have, as you might guess, one of the most lucrative entitlement programs in the history of the country. That they don't have to get involved in this until we make the plans and say, this is what we'd like to do. They have a very wide berth in terms of their rights, and they only concern themselves with transportation of rail cars over that roadway. Anything below that is on us. So all of those issues have been discussed and addressed. There are expectations into the future, but that's where they still lie. There is no funding lined up, but without phase one engineering, we can't get to that next step.
Member Phelan.
The last thing I would add too, and Terry touched on it, is Steve, there during preliminary engineering done by Hanson, the railroad wouldn't even come to the table. They have claimed that I can't remember if it's a 50-year bridge, 100-year bridge, but their operations are not affected by the safety of the pedestrians or anybody traveling underneath that bridge. So they have no intent on replacing it. So it's been kind of a struggle to get some ownership and somebody to take lead on this project, which is, I think, ultimately why it ended up here, is because we have faith in the team.
Any other questions? Kudos to Member Rulon. I know this goes back to even Member Fennell. I feel like this has been talked about for a quarter century, if not longer. People dreaming of even getting to phase one or having it in the IDOT multi-plan from Tri-County's conversation. So to be here today at phase one is pretty monumental for a lot of people to even have that. So with everything, IDOT does not move fast. This will take time, but this is stage one. And I think after talking to Member Ruland, everybody's in agreement that the county has expertise to help in, so kudos to Amy and her staff, but this will not be a county where we will be paying for that bridge or that road through there. So, but where we can help, and this should be a very good thing and beneficial to the county as a whole. So, all right, with that, please cast your vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. Next, that will bring us to Springdale Cemetery Management Authority bylaws and amendments. The ayes did have that vote. Member Duncan, Member Phelan.
All right, thanks, Mr. Chairman. So we are a party to an intergovernmental agreement with the Park District and the City of Peoria for Springdale Cemetery Management Authority. The Management Authority has the ability to amend their bylaws, and when they do so, the three parent governments need to review and approve those as well. The agenda briefing and then the attached documents have what those amendments are, but at a high-level summary, the amendments either make changes to their bylaws to come into compliance with either the Open Meetings Act or the Freedom of Information Act, based on amendments that have been enacted in both of those acts since their bylaws were created. Or I should say, and then the other primary component of the amendments to their bylaws is they're creating a committee structure. And so their bylaws, there's language added to create that committee structure. So happy to try and answer any questions of the committee.
Questions? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it. That brings us to standing committees, infrastructure. Chairman Salzer.
Thank you. We had 4 resolutions in our committee, and if you look at these, the first one had to do with the trade services contracts, and it allows, of course, work to be done, especially emergency work and so forth that might come up. And we agreed to a contract of time and materials, which, I question because having worked a little bit of construction and so forth, I used to always love to get on those jobs with time and materials. But our administration assured us that it was going to be a situation where we, the county, will be protected and there will not be any runaway costs and so forth. But if you look at it, it really deals with what they call MEP, which is mechanical engineering and plumbing. And these companies, if I remember, it was Rule, also PIPCO, a couple of the energy or electrical people, such as trying to think of the name of them now. You gonna help me out, Danny? Oberlander was one of them, I think, and was it Kerner? Kerner was the other one, and then of course Illini Plumbing was the what? Kaner. I always call it Kerner. Kaner. Okay, and those will be the companies, and that will be called in and so forth. The second resolution is our pavement management. We have 350 miles of pavement, and we have an agreement with Bradley annually, and it's worked out pretty well. And the engineering department of Bradley, they make a study of our roads. They do half one year and then half the next year. And they've been using a camera during the last few years, I guess, and they're going to attach a camera to every one of their vehicles that will go out and study the different aspects of our highways, and as a result, we'll be able to have a much better evaluation of these, and probably make some added, know what to make in our added improvements. The third resolution is our highway safety improvement intersections, which we talked about last month, and as you know, Hutchinson is the company that we agreed to hire to do this, and there are 6 different intersections. If you have any of the information about the infrastructure, they've got all 6 of these intersections to show you specifically where each one of them are located. Now, fortunately for us, it's a 90-10 agreement in regards to the cost. So we are going to be able to do this at a very, very minimal cost over the year that we make these improvements at these 6 intersections. But it has to do with the highway safety. The last one, our Hamilton parking deck garage across the street, as you know, back last fall, we set a maximum of something like $397,000, I think, for the cost of these stairways and so forth. Well, we put in charge of that PJ Hare to oversee it, so that they could also bid on it. We agreed to that, and of course, we asked for bids, and they were the only one who submitted a bid, and they not only came in with the lowest, I should say, they were the only bid, and with what they bid and the contingency that we added to it, we actually are going to pay less than what we had thought when we appointed them as the project management on it. So we think we're coming out in pretty good shape.
Thank you, Member Salzer. Questions? Seeing none, Member Duncan, Ways and Means.
Okay, the Ways and Means, we had two resolutions. One was for the monthly delinquent report for May 2026, and there was one item there, and it passed unanimously. And then we had a second resolution for neutral staffing and budgetary adjustments in the Treasurer and Finance Department, and it passed unanimously. That's it.
Thank you, Member Duncan. And your granddaughter's here again today.
Yes. Do I need to read her right now?
Reintroduce her.
And I do have my granddaughter all the way from Dallas, Texas. Malia is here. Malia, stand up for everyone. Oh, there she is. And I believe Steve kind of beat you to it this time. He
Did
had
he?
her up on the
Oh, man.
podium there. And we're so happy to have her here. She'll be here with me for maybe 2 more weeks.
Perfect.
And headed to Milwaukee.
Perfect.
Yeah. Until she gets the cat, according to Linda.
Land use was canceled. Operations, Member Ricker.
Yes, Malia did help me with the meeting, and I appreciate that. We had an informational item. Just want to quickly highlight the framework for secure generative AI innovation. A lot of big words, but a lot of good discussion with the operations committee on how do we as a county manage all the artificial intelligence coming out at us and making sure we're secure, we're not losing confidential information and such. I would encourage those who are not on operations, take some time and read the content we can share maybe in the weekly, if Scott would share that. I think it's valuable for all board members to see that. The only resolution we had was a resolution for professional services agreement with Barry Dunn for Tyler Cashiering implementation oversight. Again, a lot of big words, but essentially the Tyler Cashiering is a ask that several board members have asked IT to look at. We've got 15 different cashiering systems. So when people make payments, if it's the treasurer's office, at the health department, at the sheriff's office, it's all handled differently, and we're trying to centralize it to have a better control over funds coming into those various offices. So this did pass with 1 abstention and 1 nay. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Ricker. Questions? Seeing none. Health, Member Blair.
We had 3 resolutions. The first was to approve the 2026 landfill budget, which was approved through us. And then the other 2 related to the Board of Health has agreed to take over a grant for the continuum of care and food insecurity from the Heart of Illinois United Way. And with that would require a FTE for that, which will be paid out of that grant. And that was paid. We also agreed that if that grant were to go away, that FTE would go away as well. That's all we had.
Questions for Member Blair? Thank you, Member Blair. Public Safety and Justice, Member Phelan.
Yeah, thank you. We had one resolution during committee meetings. It was related to toxicology equipment from the coroner's office. Currently, when a tox screen is performed, they're sending out they're sending that out to be tested, and that takes time, but it also takes money. The purchase of this toxicology equipment, I think they've put together a conservative estimate that it'll pay for itself across a year and a half, but they do believe that it'll actually happen much sooner than that. This is also a service that we're going to sell to some of the other counties. We currently do tox screening for them, but now instead of them paying that bill, they're going to pay us for the service. And it passed unanimously.
Questions from Member Phelan? Seeing none, thank you. Member Daly, Finance.
Thank you. Finance has two resolutions. One was offered by CFO McCord, and that is the Peoria County Travel Policy Revision. That passed unanimously. The second was offered by Treasurer Martin, and that's a resolution for purchase card, petty cash, investment policy proposals. And that also passed unanimously.
Thank you, Member Daly. That would bring us to public comment. Hold on before we get to yours. Well, go for it, Administrator Sorrell.
Mr. Renaud just asked me, which I was already planning to do anyway, so we were thinking alike, to remind everyone that the ribbon cutting for Bicentennial Park is Friday at 1 p.m. out back.
Please join us if you can. Is there any? Well, I've got no public comment, but miscellaneous.
Will there be any parking at that event, Scott, along the street available?
Great question, Mr. Phelan. I'll see what we can do. Hopefully so, yes.
So no public comment. Miscellaneous. So speaking of past member Fennel, young lawyers are supposed to think quick on their feet. We have 4 people joining us. Noel, we bring all 4 up here and everybody introduce each other at the microphone. You get the honor of going first since your grandfather was vice chair of the board. Or those work? That work? That one's out. Just use that one there.
This one. Okay.
Welcome to the team.
All right. Hello. My name is Noel Hertz. I'm interning with Jody Hoos this summer. I'm a law student at SLU, St. Louis University, and my grandfather is Jim Fennel, so it's kind of a full circle moment.
Hello, everyone. My name is Noel Omeji. I'm clocking with Judy Hughes for the summer. I'm from University of Iowa Law School. I'm a rising 3L, and I'll be here for the summer. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Meghna Raghuraman. I am also interning with Jody Hoos for the summer. I am from University of Illinois Law School, Urbana-Champaign. And thank you.
And I'm the last of us. My name is Quinn Berry. I am going to be a third-year law student at St. Louis University School of Law in the fall. I'm also clerking with Ms. Hu's office this summer, and thank you for letting us all join today.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Member Duncan?
I do have also a reminder invite. There's a dedication at the Springdale Cemetery for the Revolutionary War Patriots Plaza, and that'll be Sunday, June 14th at 5:30. And it's on, if you don't know where Springdale Cemetery is, it's on Springfield Road. Prospect Road, 3014 Prospect Road, and all is invited. And I don't know if Mr. Phelan has others to add to that. It's in his district, but I'm liaison there. But remember, this is a Patriot Plaza dedication.
Perfect. Thank you. Anything else? Seeing none, meeting adjourned.